Hey, hold on a second. Want to learn how to take bottles like this or like this and turn it into filament like this or like this? Because then we can create some really cool stuff like this 3D printed lightsaber. Or how about this robotic arm, fully 3D printed? Check that out. And it works. In my previous video, I talked a little bit about making large cardboard spools so that when we weld these sections of filament together, they won't break around a small hub. And I'm sure this video, I'm going to get quite a few comments on people saying, oh, you need to weld it this way or try this. And I've tried a lot of those ways. I've even had people send me little doodads and gadgets like this. And I have tried it, didn't care for it. I've kind of developed my own method for doing this. I'd like to share it with everyone. It's not the only way to do it. I'm just saying it's my way. If you have other ideas, feel free to drop them in the comments. Maybe I'll read them. And here we have all of the small tools that I'm going to be using for my filament welding. Sharp blade, digital soldering iron. I can set an exact temperature with this. Small clamp to hold it to my bench. A good sharp diagonal cutters or flush cutters. And then I made this small jig. It just has a couple of notches in here, and I'll be laying the filament in these notches. Small section of my Bowden tubing. This happens to be the Capricorn Bowden tubing. Of course, one of my big spools with a binder clip to help hold the filament in place as we start spooling this on. And last but not least, a whole lot of filament. So let's get started. So here I have my digital soldering iron plugged in. I have it set for 230 degrees Celsius. That's just enough to start to melt the PET plastic, but not so much that it's going to be too wet or too soft to work with. So I've got my tools ready. I'm going to take this first loose end, take this small section of Bowden tubing. We're going to slip it over this end. I'm going to grab my other free end of PET here. There we have it, got both ends. And very carefully, I'm going to be melting both sides of the filament, getting a little bit of pool of plastic on it. And when I got just the right amount, I'm going to pick it up, put it in the jig, and press them together. I'm going to wait a few seconds, let that cool off. Now it's important here to try to keep those two ends in line with each other. Okay, that should be good. It's a good strong bond. Now we're going to take our flush cutters. We're going to nip off this excess. Why don't I bump into the camera there, huh? Cut that off. Then we can take our straight blade, remove any additional excess here. Okay. Now it's still a little snug in that Bowden tube, so what we're going to do, slide that Bowden tube on there, bring it back down on our soldering iron, and working back and forth, we're going to heat that Capricorn or Bowden tubing up. And as we do that, that heat will transfer to the filament inside, and we can work it back and forth. We want to get that joint to a point where it moves freely within that tubing. So when it feeds into the printer, we'll know that it won't wind up going into the Bowden tube of the printer. There we go. Let it cool off. There, that moves back and forth pretty freely through there. We have a good solid joint there. You can see that. Focus. Now all I got to do is wrap this one onto the spool and move on to the next one. Here's another look at it again. Going to take our free end, slip that bit of Bowden tubing on there, grab our second free end, melt both ends on the soldering iron, get a little pool going, then quickly line them up, press together, allow it to cool. There we go. Nice straight bond. Take our flush cutters, trim off a lot of that excess. Take our razor blade. Anything that's left over we can quickly trim off. Once it's trimmed, we'll slip it into the middle of that Bowden tubing, put it down on our hot soldering iron again, and while it's warming we can be turning that Bowden tube. Let the heat transfer through there, soften up that weld just a little bit. Work it back and forth. There you go. Another weld that will fit through that Bowden tubing. And here we have our finished product. This was about 10 bottles. Each bottle yielded about 14.5 meters and about 40 grams of filament. So this spool now should have about 400 grams on it, just under half a kilogram. And one of the other cool things about these cardboard spools is this tag end. You can just slip down inside these corrugations. That's handy. All right, and there you have it. That's my method for welding PET filament together. You like it? Give it a try. You don't like it? Have your own method. Keep using that. This is all free form, folks. Whatever works for you. So next video, I'm going to start talking a little bit more about the printers and the things that we're going to need to have on those printers, basic hardware requirements to print with this stuff. It's not your normal commercially made filament. There's a couple special requirements. We'll talk a little bit more about that. But until next time, see ya.